Hey everybody, welcome back. It is April 27th, Wednesday. The UFC 200 press conference happened today, so lots of stuff to get to, so we'll get right to it. It's me, again, your host, Ed Carbajal, mixed martial arts analyst for SaintPreux Media and page2sports.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Carbazal, and this is the Carbazal MMA podcast for Wednesday. Anyway, lots of stuff to get to. If you do follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I was putting up pictures and stuff from the UFC 200 press conference. This is the second press conference. They had the first one in Vegas, and if you watch that, Dana White said that it was supposed to be Vegas, New York, and I think Dublin, or someplace in Europe. I guess they're going to go to Brazil now, and then back, around this way to Vegas, California, or something like that. So today was New York, and it's particularly cool that they did it the way that they're doing it, because considering the recent victory in New York with having the ban lifted on MMA, professional MMA in the state, it was really cool to get into Madison Square Garden and sit in on something related to the sport and related to the UFC. So we'll get to that in a second. I just wanted to, I left you guys last week. That was before Bellator 153, which was Benson Henderson's debut. And so obviously you heard by now, his debut didn't go as well as he thought it was going to go. He lost a unanimous decision to Andre Koreshkov. I actually had gotten access to that event to sit in the press row, and so some fights that they didn't show were really good from the prelims. Jamil Chan is one fighter that you guys need to pay attention to. I'm actually going to do a piece on him for SaintPreux Media. His record is well, now it's 12-2, and he's got 9 knockouts and 1 submission from his wins, and he finished Richard Patishnok in the first round. He knocked him out in the first round pretty bad. They follow protocol when something like that happens. Sometimes they cut away when you guys watch it on TV, but they bring in the backboard and all that stuff to make sure. But especially when a guy doesn't move the way Patishnok didn't move, it's pretty scary. And a testament to the powder. Even Chan was he was concerned. You could tell after the win. And that's only sportsmanship. I mean, it's competition. It should not be as personal as they make it out to when they sell these fights. So that's definitely a name you want to remember, Jamil Chan. He's only 25 years old, so the guy's gonna be a beast. He's got a long way to go, and he was in the prelims in Bellator, so that was actually up on SaintPreux Media if you want to check it out. You could probably still catch the replay there or at Bellator.com. But there's a few fights of note. I'm actually looking at my notes while I'm recording this. Chris Cyborg fought his first fight in Bellator, Cyborg Santos, and he beat the local favorite, Brendan Ward. He beat him pretty bad. Won by heel hook. I thought it was a knee bar. Either way, something popped, and Ward's leg was pretty messed up. I felt bad for him, but I mean, it was a definite mismatch. I'm sorry to say. I mean, he got taken down pretty easily. It went right to the ground, and it was over fairly quickly in the first round with the submission from the heel hook. So hopefully Brendan Ward is all right. I mean, he's only 27 years old, so I mean, he's got a long career ahead of him in MMA, and Bellator likes him, so I'm sure we'll see him again should he heal quickly. And Michael Venom Page, of course, had another highlight reel finish. It's actually not a knockout, surprisingly. He got him in a toe hold, which was weird because he was standing, and his opponent Jeremy Holloway was on the ground, and he managed to grab hold of one leg, and Holloway was actually kicking him with his free leg, which it looked like the kicks landed, but they didn't really have an effect. So he managed to pull off a toe hold, and Holloway tapped fairly quickly from it in the first round. So there's a lot of finishes. It was a good card. Bellator 153. If you did not catch it, you missed a pretty decent card. I know people have their problems with Bellator because of the Kimbo Slice and the quote unquote freak show fights, but I mean, they're still pulling in numbers and growing with the sport. So can't knock him for that. And then obviously the main event, again, you guys know about Andrei Koreshkov. His striking is just he I wrote it in the Front Proof Media article. He really just imposed his stand-up game. And Benson Henderson, I mean, you got to hand it to him. He's a tough guy. He actually took a lot of strong hits from Koreshkov, which I mean, it got to the point by the end of the fight that you were wondering if Henderson was dropping from Koreshkov's hits because he wanted to bait him in for a takedown, or if he was actually being dropped because of the hits. I want to say from my point of view, it seemed like that. And if you watch the fight, you'll notice he did this thing where he was very low to the ground and ducking his head for the strikes that Koreshkov was swinging at him with, because it just looked like he was trying to snatch something and bring him to the ground. I mean, he pretty much tried. The first 2 rounds were solid wins for Koreshkov, and I mean, they were all, but Henderson tried a little harder and did a little better and did not take as much damage as the fight went on in the later rounds. But in with judges and the fight game, if you're not scoring in the championship rounds, then you're pretty much losing the fight or split decision. I mean, it's bad. So I don't know if that was his tactic. I think maybe he just needs to rethink his the way he assesses how to win fights. But the thing about Henderson and the way he fought that night, I mean, he didn't really have many marks on him. Again, he got dropped, but it just seemed like he was okay. So either way, he just needs to find better looking ways to survive damage in the fights, because what he's doing, again, for his health, it's smart. I mean, he's losing, but he's not, nothing's getting broken or torn or whatever. He's okay, but it's not winning him any fights. And I think that's why the UFC was not hesitant to they were fine with letting him go. And it was for his first fight at 170 in Bellator. I don't know. It wasn't his best showing. So, but I mean, he seemed anxious to get back in there, and maybe he'll go to 155, because him and Will Brooks would be a fight to watch. They have similar bills, and they both it'd be a battle of wits with them too, I think. So hopefully that fight happens soon or next. Maybe in Dynamite. Who knows? Dynamite 2. But that's my quick assessment of Bellator 153 from last Friday. It's a quick recap for you. Oh, real quick, the fight between Brent Primus and Glaristone Santos, that was a little bit controversial. Primus won by a split decision. A lot of people thought Santos won. I saw Santos winning the first and last rounds. I think Primus did better in the second round. I might be confusing myself. Second round, the ref looked at Primus in the second round like he was hurt, so I might have meant the opposite with that. But anyway, either way, it was a hard fight to call because both guys were dropping each other. But a lot of people in the press row seemed to think Santos won. There was some boos when the decision went out. But what are you going to do? You leave it to the judges. Stuff like that happens. But anyway. So that's Bellator 153. That was last Friday. And then everybody knows what happened last Saturday with UFC 197. Demetrius Johnson, you can't touch him at flyweight. He's the king. Everyone's using the term pound for pound to talk about the best fighters in the UFC, and he's definitely, I mean, the guy's been champion for a while. He kind of keeps getting shafted because of the weight class he's in, or I guess because he's 125 pounds. He's a little dude. But, I mean, the guy's just an awesome fighter. I've always liked watching him fight. And I don't know why, probably because of the Mexican connection to Henry Cejudo, but I thought Cejudo had a chance to at least drag him out into 5 rounds and leave it to the judges. That's what I thought was going to happen, and boy, was I wrong. Because Cejudo, he said he underestimated his clinch game, and he took him down, which is fine, but Demetrius Johnson just popped right back up and did the clinch and landed a bunch of knees on him. It was a short fight. Yeah, he's a great champion. He's a really great fighter. And then in the main event, obviously, Jon Jones' return, fighting over SaintPreux, and it's funny. This is going to lead us right into the UFC 200 press conference in Madison Square Garden today, because people were saying Jon Jones, they're being critical of his performance, but one of the things he brought up at today's press conference, and it's obvious in the fight, is that he still did dominate Ovince St. Preux for five rounds, and for his comeback, when people were calling it ring rust and what have you, the powerlifting is affecting his movement, blah blah blah, but he won all 5 rounds, and Jones actually in the press conference today pointed out something a few times, the fact that OSP only hit him twice in 5 rounds, and it was pretty much all Jon Jones hitting him for the rest of the fight, and I can't disagree with that. I mean he threw some fancy moves. He got the 12-6 elbow off, and I mean it looked like, I don't know, it looked like the same Jon Jones to me. Maybe he seemed a little bit more muscular. He looked all right, and whatever injury that he was, they had him on the scooter after the event. He looked all right today. He walked on and off stage with no problem at the press conference for UFC 200. I mean, he's people were saying he's going to be on a long layoff, but obviously this morning they announced that him and Daniel Cormier will be going at it again for UFC 200 to replace the Conor McGregor Nate Diaz match. To be in Madison Square Garden for an MMA related anything, press conference, fights that are coming in November, I was there, and it was just really, there's a lot of energy. A good amount of fans waited to get in there. We were in the theater part of the Garden, if you're familiar with the Garden, right when you walk in the main entrance, straight up the middle stairs. Why people felt the need to sprint to seats, I don't know. It's not like they, not like you can't move around. But funny thing happened. Just before it started, there was 2 Irish, like, I want to say they were kids. They're definitely younger than me because I'm not young. But one of them had the nerve to try to go backstage, and of course he was ejected. And as they're ejecting him, he turns around and yells out "Conor McGregor," and they escorted him out the door, which was weird and stupid. But he missed out. I mean, obviously you can watch this whole thing on YouTube, but there's things that the mics on YouTube don't catch that were that you hear when you're there. And I mean, I don't know what to say about the sports fan environment in New York. As long as I've been anticipating going to an MMA related event, and just being there, I mean, it felt great. I'm happy, but it looks like that team sports mentality, the fandom for New York based things, it's going to exist, especially with the UFC, because of all, you got Chris Weidman. But so obviously, if for those of you that don't know, Jon Jones trains in New Mexico, but he is from New York, so he has a strong fan base and following. that was present at the press conference. I actually felt bad for Daniel Cormier because he was getting a lot of jabs from people. Here's the thing I don't get. And I know this is probably going to bother some people, especially me. I'm a Jersey guy. You would think I'd be rooting for Jon Jones. Obviously I'm rooting for Frankie Edgar, but here's what I don't get. Jon Jones. Up until a few weeks before his fight, he was in jail. The thing with the cop was okay. The cop was being a bit of a jerk, whatever. But he's admittedly done cocaine. He got suspended for how many road-related incidents has he had? He's a great martial artist. He's a great fighter, and I'm not trying to I'm trying to be as politically correct as I can, but he had a really big pop. There are people handing him babies and all of that. He definitely owned the room. Most of the fans were rooting for him, but given what is known about him, he even talked about being in jail and how things were affecting him personally. But Daniel Cormier is an Olympian. Daniel Cormier is a former Olympian and a family man. And, he conducts himself well on TV all the time. You don't hear bad things about Daniel Cormier. And for some reason, somebody wrote an article, I didn't write it, from Proof Media, of how Daniel Cormier is being viewed as a bad guy. And I never really saw it until he came to New York. But to that, I credit the New York sports fan base culture. So, he even during the Q&A session, the fans were taking shots at Dan Cormier. But the guy's always a professional. He handled it well. He even commended the guy on the setup for his insult and said, "Well done." So he's a good guy. But they had been up since early. They were on Good Morning America to announce that they were the main event, and then they had to come to this press conference. When he walked out of the Garden, I actually saw him outside. Daniel Cormier. I didn't see anyone else when they left, but he looked tired. It's a long day. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they were at Good Morning America at 7 a.m., so, obviously they were up way before that, and waking up around here, still cold out, and it's just, mornings just suck on the East Coast. It's not like you guys that live near nice weather in California. It really sucks. But where am I going with this? Oh yeah, the ball busting that goes on in New York sports culture. Sometimes, I'm not. Again, I'm from Jersey. I'm not from New York. Frankie Edgar was there, and he just spoke the truth. But the fandom, I don't know. I was a little bit embarrassed, but and I actually felt a little bit bad for Dana White because, again, people had to come with Conor McGregor nonsense. Guys, Conor McGregor's not going to be on UFC 200. Nate Diaz already said he's going on vacation. Give it up already. Maybe they'll fight in the future. As far as McGregor specifically goes, at the press conference, Dana White reiterated he'll fight at 201, 202, 203. Some card between 200 and 205. So 201, 202, 203, 204. Either way, stop thinking he's going to show up at 200. He's off. Nate Diaz went on vacation, so they're not going to fight each other. And Conor McGregor has already missed now 2 press conferences. And I 100% agree with Dana White on, because all the people that were there, he pointed to Jose Aldo. He pointed to Frankie Edgar, who hadn't been home. He's on the East Coast, and he still hadn't been home from when they got back from Vegas. So, and he also mentioned that they do things to compromise a lot with these fighters. The perfect example was today. Daniel Cormier's kid had a recital, and he was almost not going to make the press conference because he wanted to make his kid's recital. So they actually sent out a small team to live stream the recital to Daniel Cormier, so he wouldn't miss it and still make the press conference. So I mean, that's like a happy way to make ends meet and satisfy both parties. And Dana White even said he made similar offers. Obviously, there's no kid and streaming and all that involved, but there's rumors of him flying out equipment to make him as comfortable as possible, to get him to Vegas and do the tour and everything to keep everyone together, to promote UFC 200. It's their 200th event during International Fight Week, which is like the Super Bowl week of MMA, if you follow the sport. I mean, the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation is there. They have a tournament. There's jiu-jitsu tournaments. There's a 5K. And then the Fan Expo, where people could go sign autographs for, with fighters and stuff that aren't active, in competition. It's a really great time. So, I mean, I would go regardless of who is fighting. I mean, I'm a fan of the sport. I'm not a fan of the UFC, not that I don't like them, but you know what I mean. I love MMA. I don't follow MMA because of the UFC. I follow MMA because of everything involved with the sport. So, and Conor McGregor is not a necessary ingredient. The sport's been around longer than him, and it'll be around long after him. So, let them both take their vacations and just kind of give it up. I mean, obviously, look for him August, September, October, November. That's when Conor McGregor's coming back. All right, he needs a little more time. He himself probably shouldn't have rushed to this rematch with Nate Diaz. I mean, do you really want to see a 200 UFC 200 with the main event that has no title on the line? And I know Nate Diaz said that titles are fairy tales, and that might be true because people want to see fights, and if the titles are just kind of like icing on the cake, cherries on top, whatever you want to call it, they're just what do they call it? Flair? What's that thing? The pins and stuff that the waiters wore in Office Space. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's just decoration. Sometimes Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo, they're fighting for as far as they know, because no one's heard anything from Conor McGregor, that they're fighting for an interim title. But Frankie Edgar said it best, as far as he's concerned, this is for the real title, because he doesn't think he's coming back. I mean, really, let's all just put Conor McGregor on the back burner, because he's put himself there at this point. He put himself there for his own division, and now he's done it for the sport. So let him figure out what he needs to do. I'm sure he'll come back. He's been in the sport for a while, so he'll come back. He's just got to get his stuff right. So, UFC 200 now has 3 title fights on the line. I actually like that better than what it was. I really would have liked to have seen Nate Diaz fight again. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast I did two episodes ago with my girlfriend for that one UFC 196, I had Nate Diaz winning, and of course I got him winning again if that fight rematch does happen. So, and I think that catches us up to everything going on. There's going to be more, obviously. I'm sure we'll hear more from McGregor. Nate Diaz, I think, put something on his Instagram, but again, he said he's going on vacation. Let him go on vacation. And as far as the media thing goes, I want to close out with this, because I wrote an article on it. Nate Diaz said himself a while ago, after his win, when he was making his media rounds, and other fighters have reiterated the whole thing, like Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier, Miesha Tate, Amanda Nunes, Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo, those people on stage today, those competitors, those athletes on stage today, they would much rather be training and preparing for each other than doing these media obligations. But if this sport is to grow and these fighters are going to make money the way that boxers make the money that they make in the millions, promotion is part of it. Conor McGregor has not made all the money he's made by simply fighting alone. it was a lot of promotion. I mean, all the stuff people know him for is because all the stuff he says at press conferences and interviews. It's part of the fight game, and like Dana White says, it's part of the deal. It's mandatory, and it's mandatory if you want to make that money. So, that being said, obviously all of them would rather be training, but you can't back out. No one backs out. I mean, even Nate Diaz showed up to the first press conference, and he's flat out said it before Conor McGregor did that he hates the build-up. He'd rather just get in there and fight. All of them would rather get in there and fight, but that's not how it works. It's a beast that everybody has to feed. So and if they feed it, then everybody makes money and the fans are happy, and I get to do this podcast and people get to do all their stuff on the internet, and the sport grows and everybody's happier. We're all better for it. So you got to do what you got to do to get the fight promoted out there. And Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones definitely did that today. So applause for them. And I think that's it. That's my time, guys. Thanks again for listening. For those of you that listen, I really do appreciate it. I asked for questions and comments and stuff for tonight, but nobody responded. But if you want to, you can email me, edward@theblogboardjungle.com. That's my website. You'll find this podcast and other podcasts at theblogboardjungle.com. And if you'd like to help out and donate to the podcast, the next time you want to buy something from Amazon, or if you're into buying on it supplements, please go to theblogboardjungle.com and click on any of the links to make your purchases. You'll get what you need. It won't cost you a thing, and without knowing it, you'll be helping out my website. And as far as MMA analysis is concerned, I put stuff up there, this podcast. Check out my analysis over at frontproofmedia.com and at page2sports.com. And this weekend, we got Titan FC and EFN Moscow on Fight Pass, and there's some boxing going on. Go to frontproofmedia.com to check out the boxing analysis from over there. My buddy Daniel Zaldivar is also there. Joseph Correa, my new boss. So please check out the new website, and thanks again for listening. I think that's it. I'll see you next week. You guys take care of yourselves.